All right, today I'm going to talk about the three body problem, which I read a while ago. I read it for a book club with my colleagues, and whenever I do like a book club book, I usually wait for the meeting, the like book club discussion to happen before I make one of these videos, just so that I can basically steal the insights of whoever I'm doing the club with. And this time, both me and like everyone in the book club, we had like almost nothing to say about this book. For better and for worse, like I think it is very much a sci-fi book. I uh I don't know. I liked it, I guess. I enjoyed it. It didn't really gratify me the way that I look for in literature. But it was definitely enjoyable. The thing is, I feel like this book has a really annoying quality that I think some sci-fi has, which is that it's not as smart as it thinks it is. And I don't think it's very smart. Like it's the starting point for that is that it's not very smart and it thinks it's much smarter than it is. I talked to my colleagues. There's a lot of sections where they're like the book is basically explaining physics and in the context of some like thing. And yeah, those explanations are very long. And I know almost all of the physics that underlies those explanations. And so the explanations like really sucked. Like I did not like them. I was like, wow, this is too much explaining. Like I already know all this stuff, like and this explanation is just really boring. And I also couldn't imagine not understanding the underlying physics and then reading this explanation and being like, wow, I understand it now. But I guess I thought in my sort of like naive way that maybe these explanations do work for someone who doesn't understand the underlying physics. And then I talked to my colleagues and they're like, yeah, I have no idea what this dude is talking about. This sucks. And I don't know, that's just really frustrating. Like I suppose it puts the writer in an awkward place. So the three body problem is it's basically like it's based on the physics that underlies something called a double pendulum. So a single pendulum, it swings like this, right? But then the question is, what happens if you take a pendulum and you swing another pendulum? It sort of wiggles around in a way that is chaotic, which is a proper term in physics, which means it follows predictable rules, but in an unpredictable way. So weather, for instance, is chaotic. Weather follows a set of rules, but there are so many minute things that go into deciding what the weather is going to be that you are essentially not able to predict the weather with a huge, huge degree of accuracy. Like a non-chaotic system looks like this. It's in a certain state, you understand that state, and then you can make a prediction about it far, far into the future. A chaotic system, like weather, you understand the state, and therefore you can make a prediction about it in, like a little bit into the future, but not far, far into the future. So the science underlying the three body problem is that what if there was a star system where their distance to the sun or the way that their planet orbits uh, it's a star system with three suns. The way that their planet orbits is chaotic in this sort of double pendulum way. The distance to the sun is chaotic, and therefore the temperature on their planet is chaotic, and therefore the like level of habitability of their environment is chaotic. And that's the sort of starting point, right? Not super complicated physics, uh, but it's weird because it's like the explanations make it like I just explained to you in 3 minutes what it takes this book fucking like an hour and a half to explain, and somehow their explanation is like less clear than mine just was. And the reason for that is twofold. Like one, I guess they're trying to make it more entertaining. They're trying to make it kind of fit with the vibe of science fiction. But being a little bit less charitable, they're also trying to make you feel way smarter than you actually are for understanding this situation. Okay, there's another layer to this physics stuff that is more complicated and a little bit less interesting. Maybe we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so first of all, you have this three body problem, and the issue is basically the idea is, what if you had a civilization that lived in this three body system, right? And those are the aliens in the story. They're called trisolarans because their star system has three stars in it. And the idea is that everything about them is permeated with concerns that originate from the fact that their star system has three stars in it. Okay, so the first thing is their biology. Their biology is affected by this fact. They can sort of like wither up so that they can preserve energy and reduce their chance of dying when things get really, really cold or really hot. But then their like attitude about life is also changed by this. The way that their civilization manifests, basically every level that you can think of is affected, and it basically makes them very, very brutal. Once they reach the level of being like a star-faring civilization, their attitude is like, Jesus fucking Christ, we need to like leave. We need to leave our star system ASAP. We need to find a place that we can live that is not like this. And that's what causes them to sort of want to invade and take over Earth. Which maybe they do, maybe they don't. They certainly try in this book, and I don't think we find out if they're successful until later. Except, haha, I've already read the Wikipedia article. And honestly, the most damning thing I can say about this book is that I had a much better time reading the Wikipedia plot summary than I did actually reading the book. The Wikipedia plot summary kind of slaps. It makes it sound like such a cool book, and it's so like condensed that I don't know. Like the Wikipedia plot summary respects my intelligence and respects my time in a way that the book actually doesn't. And that just fucking sucks, hey? Like I guess that's a an indication that of the I think that really describes what I hate about this type of sci-fi is that you produce this type of sci-fi and it produces a Wikipedia plot summary that is better than the actual book. I think that really condenses some of my frustrations with this type of sci-fi. Okay, there's long sections that are dedicated to people like trying to figure out the solution to this three body problem, right? Trisolaran civilization is obsessed with the idea that they're going to basically accurately predict the weather, that they're going to accurately predict changes in the climate as a result of living in this three body system. And there are many like eras in which they apply different types of scientific theories to this problem. And a thought I had like almost immediately is that unfortunately for them, a three body system, like a chaotic system like that, even if its inner workings can be known perfectly well, we live in a world where, as Einstein lamented, God plays dice with the universe. And so even a system that is known that is like fully known is not like fully deterministic. Like if you have full accurate knowledge about a system, that full accurate knowledge will kind of like degrade over time. Or another way of saying that, I guess, is that full accurate knowledge is like technically impossible. And I don't mean technically as in pedantically. I mean technically as in like in its most accurate sense, you cannot have full accurate knowledge of a mechanical system like that. Okay, so to explain for people who don't have this like 101 grasp of quantum mechanics that I do, essentially some subatomic particles, some atomic particles as well, are non-deterministic, which means that they behave they behave in a probabilistic way rather than a mechanical way. So our intuitions for the way that objects around us behave, they're all fine-tuned to a certain scale. And it turns out if you leave that certain scale, those intuitions don't apply anymore. And this has really bothered people for some time because it feels illegal. It feels illegal that at a very, very small scale, things should behave in a probabilistic way. Like an electron does not have a particular response to a particular stimulus in the way that like a marble does. Instead, an electron has a probabilistic response to a particular stimulus. This is a very like 101 explanation, and honestly, you don't need to understand more than like the very, very basics, which is what I understand about quantum mechanics. And that is that at a very like very, very minute level, certain subatomic particles behave in this unpredictable way. And it's not unpredictable in a way where, like, oh, we don't have enough information, so it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable in a way that, like, predictions, like accurate predictions, 100% accurate predictions cannot be made. Probabilistic predictions can be made, like, this particle will behave this way most of the time, or something like that. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? So, anyway, Uh, that yeah. Once again, I've explained to you in like under 3 minutes something that it takes this book like a fucking hour to fully explain to you. And I think that part of what I find really frustrating about this is that the explanations that it gives, I feel like they're not real explanations because none of my colleagues went from not understanding this stuff to understanding this stuff. Uh, I think the purpose of these explanations is not for you to understand better, but for people who already know this stuff to really, really like jack themselves off about how fucking smart they are for understanding like a Rick and Morty level of quantum mechanics. And hey, that really fucking sucks. Especially since the place that it's going is like, I don't know, not that not that crazy interesting. Trisolarian civilization concludes from this quantum mechanics problem that they just need to get the fuck out of here. They're in this unpredictable, chaotic system, and it has impeded the growth of their civilization. It causes lots of problems for them, and uh, they eventually realize because of quantum mechanics there is no permanent solution to their problem. And so their permanent solution instead is like, we are going to steal a habitable world from someone else. Which, okay, that makes sense. But like this book is like hundreds and hundreds of pages long, right? I feel like I've just described a situation to you, and that this book, as a matter of fact, takes hundreds and hundreds of pages to describe like a situation to you. And I don't know, it just fucking sucks. I went into this wanting to have a like a better I wanted to like appreciate this as sci-fi. Like I heard that this is like the really like hard-hitting sci-fi. And I think that's just not true. Like it's not really hitting that hard. Um I was able to understand like almost everything here. There's some string theory stuff that I didn't really understand, but I also didn't feel that I needed to understand it because like if the relationship between the like quantum mechanics stuff and the actual events of the plot is so loose that I was able to just be like, okay, I'm just gonna assume these explanations about string theory are primarily masturbatory in intent, and that I don't actually need to know any of this stuff. And it turns out I didn't need to know any of that stuff. So yeah, the other thing is I really I picked up this book because I wanted to read like a Chinese book, and there is some stuff in this book that is like particularly Chinese. I actually really really appreciated that those parts. Like maybe the first half of the book has some sections that are very like rooted in their time and place, and that time and place being during and then after the Cultural Revolution in China. And then after that, the book is set in like the near future, which was kind of less interesting. But the stuff where people are like living through the Cultural Revolution and living in the impact of the Cultural Revolution, that stuff was fucking awesome. That was the fucking coolest part of the book. And this leads me to something I'm very annoyed by, which is the Netflix adaptation, which I was thinking about watching, but which I think I would probably not. During the discussion with my colleagues, they some people had talked about how they had seen it, and they basically removed the China stuff. Like they kind of like de-Chinified this book, which is fucking crazy. It's a fucking crazy thing to do because first of all, like I don't know, it just is a Chinese book. I'm not sure that you should be de-Chinifying it. And number two, like oh no, the Cultural Revolution stuff is by far the best parts of the book, and they're like, no, well, we need to like get rid of this shit. Okay, second of all, the Netflix adaptation gets rid of something that I really love, which is that the majority of people in positions of power and making important decisions in this book are like minimum 45 years old. They're all old guys and old women, like 35, 45. That's the age range, right? And I really appreciate that because I feel like these people all of the people who are making these like really, really substantial decisions for the human race, they kind of been through the ringer a little bit, you know? They have life experience that's backing them up. They have an understanding of who and what humans are, and their decisions about the human race are rooted in that understanding in a way that is like believable and interesting to me. And the place where this book comes closest to being like good literature, in my opinion, is when it aims for those like unbelievably huge emotions that I think other genres are afraid to touch, but that science fiction and fantasy are not afraid to touch. So, for instance, there's a character who her backstory is that her father was murdered during the Cultural Revolution. She was given the opportunity to work in this like a research facility, but with the understanding that this is like government research and that as an enemy of the state, because her father was like a, killed in the Cultural Revolution, she will never be allowed to leave this facility as like a data security thing. Like she's not trusted not to leak state secrets, so she's just going to live in this facility for the rest of her life, right? And she has started this romance with this man, her I think superior officer, who has like seen something in her, and they have this romance that's kind of blossoming. And she does this experiment where she realizes that it like basically radio waves can be amplified greatly by firing them into the sun. And so she does that, and then 7 years later, there's a response that is clearly extraterrestrial in origin. And the response is like, hey, we got your radio signal. We're so excited to be pen pals. Oh man, finally, connecting across the stars. This is great. Why don't you just give us another, like, comparably powerful radio signal, and then we'll be able to, like, blah, 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 blah. And shortly afterwards, she gets another signal that's like, hey, don't listen to those guys. Those guys are space fascists, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna fucking come steal your planet from you. So do not respond. This is a pacifist group. Hopefully, we'll never hear from you again. Goodbye. And we find out later that that group is actually just one guy, and it's not a group. It's not an organization. This is a guy, a Trisolarian, who just in the whim, the heat of the moment, he decides that he is going to save the human race, which is a crazy, like, another thing I love. We get this guy's backstory, right? We see this individual Trisolarian who lives in the society that is single-mindedly dedicated to finding a hospitable planet and stealing it from the people who are currently living there. And he, heat of the moment, decides to go against that, to betray his entire species, to betray his entire civilization, blah, blah, blah. And we get his backstory. And, just like the humans, I don't know how old he actually is, but spiritually, dude's like 55 years old, right? He's been through it. He could theoretically still reproduce, start a family in this weird way that Trisolarians do. It's not the typical. We don't have time to get into it, but they reproduce in a very atypical way. But anyway, he's not reproducing, right? He has been denied the ability to have a family, and he is essentially like refuse, right? And uh, I mean, I don't know. It's not high literature, but we like get the background on this alien's decision to try to save the human race. But anyway, so this woman receives this signal that's like, hey, do not respond under any circumstances or all of Earth will be destroyed. And you know what she does? She fucking responds. She's like, I think that the human race is not worth it anymore. I don't know who these guys are, but they probably deserve the planet more than we do. And that's fucking awesome. And I love, love, love that by this point the book has spent hours and hours and hours setting up this decision and making it make sense to us that that's exactly what's going to happen, you know? Making it make sense to us that she would make that decision, making it something that's understandable but also internally complicated, right? And she eventually comes to regret the decision, which is absolutely lovely. There's character development. I don't think it's pursued particularly um, realistically. I don't think that Three Body Problem achieves its aims, but I would actually compare this to Frankenstein, in that Frankenstein is also aiming at feelings that are so gargantuan that they can only be contained within the frame of science fiction or fantasy. And because Frankenstein achieves those incredible aims, it's considered a work of classical literature first and sci-fi second. Whereas like other works like Three Body Problem aim at similarly gargantuan feelings, this decision to like betray the entire human race, but it doesn't quite present them believably, and it's not focused enough on the feelings themselves for it to achieve the same sort of like literary success that that Frankenstein does. But anyway, so that's why that's the thing that I love the most about this work. That's what I would say makes it worth reading. And you can see also how this type of character, this type of thinking, and there's other stuff like that that I don't want to get into that's like kind of similar across different characters, but you can see that this type of thinking is rooted in being kind of old, having some years on you, not being a sexy 25-year-old. So what do in the Netflix adaptation? They replace every single one of the major characters with a sexy 25-year-old. That's right, baby. We're gonna get rid of the other thing that makes the show kind of this story kind of interesting. We're getting rid of that too. Number one and number two. Don't know what number three would be, but they probably got rid of that shit too. Um, and I don't know, I was so incensed about this when I found out about it. Like just from the gut, I was like, this is just like pretty washing. I don't know, like the show, like the fucking book does not really respect your intelligence, if I'm being honest, and the show respects it even less than the book does. It's like, oh, you not only are you completely incapable of understanding complex physics or even like basic physics. The physics in this book is not very complicated. Not only are you completely incapable of understanding basic physics, you're also incapable of maintaining interest in a group of people that aren't all really hot. And I don't know, it made me so fucking upset. It's I guess I'm like imagining if they made like a Netflix adaptation of Disco Elysium and they replaced Harry and Kim with like super sexy like 23-year-olds. That would just suck. I would just fucking hate it so much. And you know what? Now that I've spoken that into the world, I'm like certain that it is going to happen one day. We're gonna get bimbo-fied Kim and sexy-fied Harry. Uh, and we will deepen our culture's perpetual inability to empathize with people who are either ugly or above the age of like 35 or both. So great, yeah, love this. I don't know. With concluding remarks about the book, honestly, the story is really interesting, but just go read the Wikipedia plot summary. It's a substantially better experience than actually reading this book. Will I read the sequel? Probably not. Okay, that's all I have for today. Bye bye.